Now, within the energy matrix, there are 24 15-dimensional matrices. Okay? On this here, you can see. You have the energy matrix, conceptualized as a pool of crystalline energy, let's say. Here, we have 24 smaller matrices that form on the 6-axis. Each one of these is a full spectrum reality system that has 5 harmonic universes. So where we are right now in relation to this, we're in one little one. And on this diagram, we're not even identifying which it is, doesn't matter. We just need to know we're in one of these. And our first step is learning to go up in that one before we have to worry about moving into the other levels. We'll take this to the second chart. Harmonic universes. This is what I was talking about in the lecture also. In one 15-dimensional matrix, okay, it is broken down in sets of 3 dimensions with the 8th dimension at its core. The 8th dimension connects it to the greater matrices. So it is the point of entry into a 15-dimensional matrix. For you to all have gotten here as consciousness, you had to pass through the 8th dimension, and then your consciousness spreads out throughout the 15-dimensional matrix. It becomes dimensionalized, and through that, you become able to experience different levels of matter solidity and solid matter reality. So you just start as pure consciousness. So it's a process of when we come from pure consciousness into embodiment and manifestation, we come through the 8th dimension at the center, and then our consciousness spreads out into multiple forms simultaneously. Now, down here, dimensions 1, 2, and 3, harmonic universe 1. That is where Earth is stationed, and is local galaxies right now. We started the Keylontic race in harmonic universe 2. We started in harmonic universe 2. Am I in your way? Alright. Now, the fall of man stories that have been passed down in our lineage were denoting a fall, literally, in vibrational frequency from the frequency band of harmonic universe 2 into the frequency band of harmonic universe 1. Now, harmonic universe 2, there's a planet called Tara. That planet is a higher level version of this planet. There are pieces, anything that enters the center point through the 8th dimension, it's versions of itself manifested within each harmonic universe. So here, the Earth, in harmonic universe 1, has a counterpart, Tara, in harmonic universe 2. It has a counterpart, Gaia, in harmonic universe 3. And there are others going into the non-manifest aspects that we don't even need to deal with. So right now, we're all taking place, and our evolution on Earth is taking place down here, in the dimensions 1, 2, 3, in the first harmonic universe. Now, within one harmonic universe, we're dealing with a set of time cycles, time continuum. There are, in the 3-dimensional field, dimensions 1, 2, and 3, there are 6 small cycles of time that are time continuum. They're actually rhythms of particle pulsation speed, and that change the angular rotation of particle spin of molecules. This is what creates the passage of time. This is really a holographic reality system, and it's hard to understand. And I'm not going to try to explain that because it's not important that you know that. What you do need to know is that we are evolving in time cycles, and at certain points in cycles, different things happen, and we are coming up to a point in a cycle that is very important. Now, we have, within the Earth time cycles right now, we have 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, time continuum cycles. Earth has gone through all of these, and we are right here now. We are in the 6th time continuum cycle, and we are approaching the center point in that cycle. And the center point in that cycle is when something called the stellar bridge begins to align with the Earth. It's an electromagnetic bridge of frequency that comes down from higher dimensional systems, from these systems up here. There's a lineup on a vertical axis of energy currents that takes place between the higher and the lower harmonic universes. It creates an infusion of higher frequency energy, scalar waves, light waves, sound waves, and electromagnetic waves that are not normally present. Now, Earth's cycle usually takes 26,556 years for all of this to complete. During that time, when we come back up into this cycle and we reach this point, we have an opportunity for that stellar bridge to link up with the Earth, but it doesn't always happen. The Earth's core vibration has to be at a certain rate before this can take place. It hasn't taken place. The Earth's core vibration has not been high enough for over 200,000 years. This is the first time in over 200,000 years that we are going to get bombarded with stellar frequencies. We have no race memory to draw on. What might this mean? There are going to be changes here that many in the higher world are just watching and pulling up the seat because even they don't know what it's going to turn out like. You know, this is the hot spot in the universe right now. Wow, check it out. What's happening on Earth? So it helps to understand the framework that our evolution is taking place within. And I could say a lot more on this and on the cosmic levels of it, but I'm not going to do that because I think what's most valuable for the people here is to understand the parts you're going to go home with, your own personal morph field, your own personal multidimensional identity structure. If you can get an idea of what that is and start to work with it, then the rest will start to make sense to you. But I just wanted you to understand the basic structure that evolution is taking place within. We are down here. We have passed through these time continuums, and we are up here. And it's time for celebration and also time for some challenges. Okay. We're going to get into evolutionary substance. We get into morphogenetic fields. And I will try not to get very technical with this, because again, I'm trying to get you back to the anatomy of your multidimensional identity. It's the most precious thing I can give you to take home with right now. All right. I've spoken about morphogenetic fields. These are crystalline structures that are the blueprint for matter and consciousness when it is within a dimensionalized scale. And as we just learned by the cosmic diagrams, we are in a dimensionalized scale. Now, morphogenetic fields are not a hypothetical something. They are a literal something made of substance. The substance they are made of are ultra-micro particles that are very minute. They have not been identified by science. They're much smaller than the particles that are identified presently by science. Those particles are the particle, part K, and particle. Now, particles are antimatter, which is a radioactive substance. It is more a wave pattern than a substance. Out of that wave pattern, there's polarization that continually occurs that continues to manifest this crystalline morphogenetic field. It creates, by internal fission and fusion, the particle breaks apart and simultaneously creates a particle, which is the base for matter particles in the particle universe, and creates a particle K, which is the base for particles in the anti-particle universe. That's where you get your parallel Earth and your parallel double. We are in the particle system right now. We are evolving in the particle system. And we do have a double Earth in this system, in harmonic universe 1. It is parallel Earth. That is not the same thing as Terra. Terra also has parallel Terra. It is harmonic. So when we're dealing with morphogenetic fields, we are dealing with these particles. What we're concerned with most now is just having a basic understanding that these particles create the morphogenetic blueprints that I'm speaking about. And they do it through a process of accretion. They pull together by light electromagnetic charge. The particles group together, they have a base magnetic charge. And the particles pull together, they have a base electrical charge. And they literally form blueprints for matter in the parallel systems. Now, the first stage that particle or particle K will go through is they form strands. If you can picture particle K or particle as little dots, they begin to group into strands. And then those strands begin to form crosshatch-type grids. And that's called a particle grid. That is the basic fabric of which morphogenetic fields are woven. Within the grid, it continues to accrete or pull into itself more units of particle or particles, or particle K or particles, creating something called Keylontic. Here's where we start to get the filling out of form. This is where we get the crystalline lattice work, as following the electromagnetic instructions that are carried within the particle or particle K units. We are building up more complex forms that take on crystalline shape. If you could see them under a microscope, they would look like little crystals, like blood has crystals and that kind of thing. These are crystal substances. The Keylontic go further to form complex groupings. Just like imagine a quartz crystal filling out its little pieces, all the little facets starting to grow and becoming more as it grows bigger and bigger. Well, that's what the morphogenetic field grids do. They pull together more and more Keylons because they draw in more energy from the field of particle and particle, and they create Keylon codes. And when we're dealing with Keylontic science, the base codes of matter, we are dealing with Keylon codes, the groupings of crystalline structure, that hold the instructions upon which our bodies and our consciousness will manifest here. If you want to change the way something works, or you want to change the structure of something, first you go to the blueprint to change it. Because here, we're dealing with not just blueprints on a piece of paper. We're dealing with blueprints that are electromagnetic instructions. It's like in a computer. They work as the program. If you want the computer to do different things for you, you change the program. And that's what Keylontic morphogenetic science will help you to learn how to do. You're going to learn to reprogram and restructure certain configurations in your morphogenetic field in order to undo blockages that have been put here by DNA mutations that were done by interstellar Illuminati groups that are visited. And you will learn to bring into activation the original gene code of the 12-strand DNA silicate matrix. Through this, and you only have to do a very little bit of it. We're only working on helping people to learn to activate to strand 4.5. I'm not even worried about the rest of the 12 right now. That will get us through the time acceleration. And so it's not that hard. So there's the basic units. Now, there's a lot of talk about fire letters. And there's some other people of spiritual persuasions that are talking about fire letters out there too. Fire letters are, if we were going to write down what these codes are, these Keylons, fire letters would be how you would express a Keylon. There are 12 primary fire letters that govern each dimensional level of the human morphogenetic field. Those 12 primary fire letters are usually expressed in terms of the Hebrew alphabet, the original Hebrew alphabet. And that represented sound tones. The sound tones of those letters of the alphabet would trigger Keylon codes into activation within the body morphogenetic field and within the DNA. So there was a real importance in the mystical traditions of working with fire letters. They were working with sound tones to activate morphogenetic imprints that would activate DNA. And that's why it was all attached to ascension, spiritual things, because that is the process that will awaken your DNA so you can accomplish dimensional ascension. All right, now, we work with something called geomancies. Geomancies are the control codes. The fire letters represent the 12 primary codes. For each strand of DNA that you have in the 12-strand silicate matrix, you would have 12 primary fire letters. If you jumble them all up together, and also all the tertiary, secondary, and tertiary codes that are contained in that DNA strand, you would have a configuration of energy that would be a fixed point of frequency vibration and a fixed scalar wave, a standing wave pattern in your morphogenetic field that, when expressed out here, would look like a geometric form. When we use geometric forms consciously, understanding what they represent, you can reprogram your morphogenetic field if you know how to use the key codes that control the fire letters that control the morphogenetic field that controls the DNA. So it's kind of a complex process. And like I said, I'm just going to kind of move it at you a little bit and move on. But there's much more for people who are interested in pursuing. You know, there will be very courses to really help you understand the process. So these are the basic substances out of which morphogenetic fields are created. We're not talking hypothetical, but real substance things. Just like your foot is real. The morphogenetic field is real too. Then following in the package, I'm going to skip the next couple because they can be dealt with later. And you can also just review them yourself. I will show one diagram to point out something. When I'm talking about the silicate matrix gene configuration, right over here, this little diagram looks like a snowflake. That is how it's expressed in terms of what it would look like. There are 12 strands that are double heli. You have the magnetic heli, which is represented by the dark line, and you have the electrical villi. Right now, our science sees two villi. They're only seeing the ones that correspond to second dimensions, because that's the only thing their instruments can pick up. DNA is stacked in overlay form. It's multidimensional. If you're using instruments that are key to these dimensions, they will only have a very limited ability to make visible the DNA strand. If you want to see strand 3, you have to go to D4, dimension 4. So right now they're in dimension 3. They're focusing on materials from dimension 3. They're seeing strand 2. So they're missing a lot. Now, this is what we're aiming to activate. And in so doing, we will eventually evolve ourselves out of here and back in the harmonic universe 2, and then 3, where we will go from carbon-based matter body to a carbon silica-based matter body to a pure silica-based matter body, which is etheric. So we will lessen our density levels as we go. But right now, all we need to worry about, we have already strand 1 activated, strand 2, and most of us are between 3 and 3.5 strand activation levels. For the things that are to come, the time acceleration, we need to get to 4.5. That would be all strand 4 and half of strand 5. In the silicate matrix, each of the strands has 12 primary base codes, which are the magnetic codes, so there would be 12 little dots, let's say, in the black line on each of those, and 12 matching acceleration codes that correspond to our antiparticle bubble. In the process of activating the strands, we are bringing each set of those codes active into the DNA. And we are using sound to do it, and we are using light and specific geomancy that control those strands. So that's where we get the importance of understanding why we're using these symbols. They are the control codes in the morphogenetic field that will allow us to trigger the activation of dormant codes within the DNA strands. Okay, so we're just working to activate 4.5. Others can go beyond that. Some are already beyond that. Some people are walking around with, I don't think anybody's at full 12 on the planet right now, but there's a couple coming. Yeah. That will be addressed. By the way, that comment will be addressed in the workshops or the seminars at the end of the month. We will get into the birthing of the avatars that are coming to help the process. We're not talking about right now. So I just want you to understand, you have a silicate matrix in you. It plugs in the whole dimensional structure that I talked about as far as the 15-dimensional matrix. It's a very tight evolutionary package. It is a system, and it is a system by which we evolve here. And what I'm going to do from here on is these little packages. I suggest reading your packages too, because to kind of do the time thing here. I'm going to go where I need to go with this. With the material, we'll use the graphs, but I'll take them where I need to. You'll get more from them by reading them later, so you'll get it from both sides. All right, here, we're going to get into the structure of your multidimensional identity. Well, what your anatomy really is. Science tells you that your anatomy is what you see when you look in the mirror, and the stuff that's on the inside that the surgeons can see when they cut you open. But they don't tell you that there are electromagnetic realities, and they don't tell you that there are fields of particle and particles that are composing your system, because they don't know this yet. That's why they're not telling you. The future people that are communicating with us do know that. Okay. Now, I like this word, it made me laugh when they first told me. We have something in our morphogenetic structure called Huva bodies. A Huva body is a grid of energy. It's scalar wave points, little standing wave patterns, and fixed points of frequency, sound, that hold those patterns in place, that correspond to the harmonic universes in the 15-dimensional matrix. Each of us has a level of our identity in harmonic 1, harmonic universe 2, 3, 4, and 5. Because when you enter the center point, it dimensionalizes. So you have levels of higher selves. The process of evolution is bringing these levels in, the integration with this self. Now, the levels of Huva bodies, now technically Huva means a triadic harmonic light sound grid. They're dealing with a grid, a particle grid. All right. We're in something called the Nada Huva body. That, what is Nada Huva? I was wondering if they were being funny. They said, no, that's really the name of it. Okay. The Nada Huva body is your three-dimensional identity here. You have your physical body, which is composed of D1, dimension 1, and D2 particles. And you have your mental body. So you have, really, the D1 is mostly associated with particle base. So you have D1 physical, D2, which gives you part physical, part emotional body reality, and D3, which gives you mental body reality. These are the focuses of the different aspects of your consciousness. You have a body consciousness, you have an elemental consciousness that's connected with the earth through D2, and you have a mental consciousness that you identify as your conscious self here. That takes place within the grid of the Nada Huba body. The next level out is the outside Huba body. This is called also the soul matrix. People wonder what is the soul, where it is. This is what it is, and this is where it is. The soul matrix, or the Alpha Huba grid, is in harmonic universe 2. It's composed of the dimensional frequency bands of D4, 5, and 6. That's the parts of your consciousness that are stationed in D4, 5, and 6. In D4, you have your astral self, your astral awareness. And for people who have begun astral projection, those kind of things, that's where you are when you're projecting with the astral. There's another level above that, and this is the one we're going to be working with, the D5 level of your consciousness. That's called the archetype. And D5 happens to be a controlling dimension. It controls the patterns of the ones below it. So in using your D5 archetype identity, which sets the pattern for your incarnational identity down here, you can realign your genetic code, but also your consciousness with the original intentions and patterns that your soul had originally set, which is you. So the first step in spiritual evolution and biological evolution is bringing in the Alpha Huba body grid into merger with the Nada Huba body grid. And we do that through a process called grounding the archetype, grounding the fifth dimensional aspect of identity, which is grounding the Alpha Huba body into the Nada Huba body. Now, on here, I'm not going to go through these one by one like a regular instruction. You have it there if you want to read about the next one. I want to get to the processes we need to do right now. You have the information here above and beyond what I'm going to be talking about now. So you can see the names of the other bodies. And there are diagrams later that show which dimensions they correspond to. But all the way up to 15-dimensional scale, you have a part of you. And the process of becoming whole is the process of integrating those various parts sequentially. And as that is done, sequentially, the DNA with the silicate matrix activates. The silicate matrix was designed to hold 12 dimensions, 12 out of 15 dimensions of consciousness. So when it is fully activated, you are able to pull in to merger the Nada Huba, the Alpha Huba, the Beta Huba, and the Makara Huba body grid. And it gives you a level of consciousness that's very hard to explain from this perspective. And it's a progressive opening. So as you work with the Huba bodies, and with techniques like grounding the archetype, which is the first level, then we'll get into grounding the next level up in harmonic 3, which is the monad. But right now, the important thing is just learning a little bit about grounding your archetype, because that's what we're going to focus on. Okay. As you do this, you are evolving your DNA, and you are also evolving your consciousness. Now, mutations in the DNA come into factor here. Originally, we were not even designed to die. We were designed to be an immortal body that progressively activated the silicate matrix, progressively merged those grids until it left down here and was able to ascend up to harmonic 2 and then up to harmonic 3 because of manipulations that were done to our morphogenetic fields by changing those fire letter codes into something they weren't originally intended to be, by various Illuminati factions that have messed with us since the time we were put here. We carry certain blockages to this process. And this is where becoming aware of our DNA is important. There are processes of using the geomancy control codes and the right sound tones that you can restructure and put back the right fire letters so these grids can merge. Because you're trying to, when you're merging the consciousness of your higher levels, you're merging electromagnetic grids. And if there's a frequency imbalance there, they're not going to merge. That frequency imbalance is carried in the DNA. And there are procedures that they're giving us that we can do internally. You don't need a scientist to do this for you. In fact, you're better off not, right now, unless they happen to come from, 6,520 AD. Then they, I trust them. But there are processes of learning to direct light using color, internal color, sound, using sound, tones, and toning, and the geomancies, which are the keys, because they will put that light and sound in the right form in the morphogenetic field. We can reverse mutate whatever mutations are there. And we can also learn to discover where precisely we're at. We are being, I was trained, and was being trained in diagnostics on how to tell where, analyze and scan a person's DNA level. And I will, and starting to give private consultations on this. And it's very private. When you find out where your gene code's at, don't tell anyone. Because the higher it is, the more the Illuminati would love to know you. Because they do not want the ones with the higher gene codes to activate those gene codes. Because they will pull in knowledge and they will pull in power. It will overthrow the Illuminati hold here. That's why they kept us genetically mutated for as long as they could. Now is our chance to get out from under that. We're given the information. I can't take questions during the day.
I'm sorry, what group are you in contact with?
I'll have to talk about that at the end. Okay, I'll recap it. Yeah, I can't take questions in that one. Sorry. I can do this way at the end. Please, I will address that in the end. Okay? But for the rest of the people here, they heard in the lecture. And if you weren't in the lecture, that's why it's a little hard to catch up. I will address that later, but it's not time for questions. All right. Here's another part of your double body, and now we're flipping over. So real quick, that I'd like to have you become familiar with. Now we talked about the Hoover body grids, which are the electromagnetic sound grids, scalar wave sound grids, that correspond to the 5 harmonic universes in the 15-dimensional scale. Now we have our chakra system. Each of these grids corresponds to certain energy centers or vortices that bring energy from that dimensional level into the body. We have 15 chakras, primary ones, there's lots of little ones, so there's 15 primary. And each one of those chakras pulls in energy from the dimensional band that has that number. So chakra 15 will be where the energy, the frequency bands from dimension 15 will spiral down in through the body. And they usually don't, the gene code blocks it right now. But for instance, our first chakra, that is pulling energy into the body and into the morphogenetic field from the unified field of energy of the first dimension. Dimension 2 energies come into our body through the second chakra. Dimension 3 through the third, and etc., all the way up. So there's direct correspondence between the dimensional bands and the Hoover bodies that have their correspondence to the dimensional band and the chakra system. We'll be using chakras to introduce the right geomancy. We'll use the specific chakra that goes with the specific DNA strain we want to affect, using the specific control code that allows change to happen in that area. Understanding the correspondences between these will probably take a little while. The diagrams that you study will help, and also like the later courses and books that are going to be out will help. But once you get a basic idea that all these things correspond to each other, you get a roadmap to your anatomy. What chakra do I use to affect this strand, and what code do I use there? The answers to those questions are in understanding these relationships, and it's not that difficult once you're more familiar with the pattern. So I just wanted to show you a bit about your subtle body anatomy, where it plugs in, all the way from your chakras to your DNA to the dimensional scale. So you start getting the process and getting an idea that in order to accelerate my evolution, it's about running energy in specific ways through these systems. It's a very tight system that you're running around in your body. And there's levels of yourself that will help guide you. Once you begin to work with grounding the archetype, which we were going to begin to do here, I will explain more of that in the end. You will tap into the first level of your master within. It's a level of consciousness that's higher than yours, but it belongs to you, not somebody else's. It's yours. It's your 5th dimensional level of consciousness. And that holds all the information you need to know as far as what to do with your body down here. So the idea is to begin grounding that consciousness into your consciousness here on an awake level. So the exercises that we'll be giving, we did a meditation tape this morning, Keylontic. It sounds like a meditation tape, but it's really a Keylontic posturing tape, that you are running certain colors and symbols through certain chakras in certain ways. In this particular one, is specifically to start imprinting into your consciousness and your body here, the imprint of your 5th dimensional archetype. So you can begin creating protection from astral before interference, and also begin integrating the higher guidance system that you will need to get through these changes. So these are some of the correspondences we'll be dealing with in more intensive workshops. So these are intensive workshops. Now, I would say you're going to learn the structure of DNA, you know, from base codes to acceleration codes to fire codes, which I won't even cover right now. It is a process, and they do know what they're talking about. The ones from the future that are giving this information.
Oh, thanks.
Yes, in physical form. I have had physical encounters, okay? Does that answer it? Your question?
Oh,
We are being visited from the future. All right, so,
Thank you.
now, part of this anatomy system, where we have the Buddha bodies and the chakras that all correspond, and they all correspond to the DNA strands, we have what a lot of people call the auric field. The level of the aura. The aura is what we call the bioenergetic field. Most people, and there's one person whose work I really admire out here on her analysis of some of the auric field is the woman named Barbara Brennan. She has books out, The Hands of Light and Light Emerging, and probably some others that I haven't got yet. But she is a healer and teacher that has some wonderful information on the structure of the auric field and its correspondence to the chakra system. She doesn't have some of the other things as far as the DNA and the other things that we plug into it. But if you want to learn more about that, look for some work on Barbara Brennan. And most bookstores carry because they're like classics in metaphysics at this point. But she talks about the 7 inner layers of the auric field. These in here. These correspond to dimensions 1 through 7. You also have the 8 outer layers here that extend way out beyond your body, out into the universe, literally. They correspond to the higher chakras and the higher dimensional fields. So this is another part of your structure, your anatomy, that it helps you to become aware of. And here's a little closer look at the silicate matrix. As it says, the original pattern has 12 strands, double helix strands of DNA, has a base magnetic strand, which is composed of particle units, and a base electrical strand, which is composed of particate units. They were the units that form anti-particle matter, antimatter. So you literally have matter and antimatter strands. And when they come together, fusion occurs, and fission and replication. And this is part of the processes that we're going to be going through as we activate the silicate matrix. The way it originally worked before there were mutations, and the mutations would show like some of these codes be totally missing. You'd have blank spots where they're supposed to be dots, or there would be, say if the dots were supposed to be round, instead they had squares. They don't plug into each other the way they were intended. The way it was originally intended was the codes in one strand would progressively become activated as a being was down here and drawing energy into his morphogenetic field from the dimensional unified field. It's called frequency accretion, drawing energy, and you do it by breath, and you do it by just there's a pulse by which energy moves from the outside of you through to the inside of you and back outside again. It creates frequency accretion of frequency waves, wave patterns. The DNA is activated, the 12-strand pattern is activated by progressive frequency accretion, bringing more and more energy from the unified field, stimulating the activation into the codes. When you get the codes in one strand fully activated, it stimulates something here called the fire code, which is a code that exists between strands. The code between strands, the fire code, allows for one strand to plug into the other. And when you get a successive plugging in of 3 of those, it would take a body from a carbon-based biology into a carbon-silica-based biology, and it would shift your biology and your orientation in space-time to harmonic universe to terra. But it's a slow process. It doesn't happen bang like that. It's not most of it. So this is the basic structure we're working with. This diagram is called the Beta Huba key, because it's the key to the 3 levels of the Huba bodies, the Beta Huba, the Alpha Huba, and the Nada Huba. And it's the key to understanding how to work with them. But for now, it just helps you to visualize what those 12 strands of DNA look like, and to understand that as we work with our archetype and work with spiritual integration, what we are doing is learning to fire these codes, straighten them out, and to fire them. So this process, this natural process of activate the code, trigger the fire code, activate the next set, let the strands blend, will progressively take place within us. it was our natural birthright to have the ability to transmute form rather than to die and reincarnate. For over 5 million years, that process has been messed with, and we have had to reincarnate to bring in all of those frequencies. Our reincarnations are done for the purpose, they purpose, of trying to accrete or bring in to our morphogenetic field all of those frequencies. And it used to work in a way that you didn't have to die to do it. But because they blocked some of the codes in through here, you had to drop the body and start a new one at that level of vibration, that you carried the imprints that you took, that you had from your other body, you carried that as a morphogenetic imprint into your next incarnation. And you would take it from there and try to build the next set of codes. So it's much slower now because of what they did to our codes. We're going to learn to undo that if we learn mechanics of Keylontic morphogenetic science. There's this one to help you see. I'm not going to explain too much here, but for those who have the package, this diagram can help you see some of the correspondences between the human bodies and the dimensional structure and that kind of thing, where the silicate matrix plugs in. So that's kind of like a real quick analysis of what I just talked about, of how the things correspond to each other. Followed my sequences exactly, and that's okay. You have the original sequencing package. But there's one more thing I want to introduce, and then I'm going to take it from the package. I'm going to take it into a little bit of questions so we can get an orientation of what needs to be said here. Now, in the progressions that I talk about here of integrating your Uva bodies and your higher spiritual identities, which progressively activates DNA strands, here's the progression of matter density levels that go along with this evolutionary package. We're down here in the physical, hard physical matter system, and biological forms have a carbon-based biology. When we bring into ourselves and activate the full first 3 strands of DNA, we begin to make a transition into the next harmonic universe cycle. We begin to activate strand 4 and progressively shift ourselves into harmonic universe 2. It's not a process that happens overnight. It happens over many, many years, sometimes over many incarnations. What we're facing, most of us right now, because we're between 3 and 3.5 strand accretion, a lot of us are getting really near the transition point right here, where we begin to activate strand 4, which means bringing in the frequencies from the 4th dimension, bringing into the morphogenetic field, which will activate strand 4 of the silicate matrix. So we're going into this transition now. When we fully have activated the alpha-uva body, which is the soul matrix pattern within our bodies here, we will have brought in 4th, 5th, and 6th dimensional frequencies. We will have activated strand 4, 5, and 6. So right now, the most important thing is getting strands 1, 2, and 3 straightened out, so the codes are right, so they can accept the activation of strand 4 and then 5. Because all we have to do is get strand 4 activated, and most of us have the imprint. There are some people, everybody has a little bit different genetic imprint right now. There, some people have certain codes and don't have others and that kind of thing. So it's very individual. But most of us can benefit just by working with the archetype, the 5 pattern, to begin the activation process of strand 4, and then begin the activation process of strand 5. When we hit strand 6 activation, we would be able to walk through portals and go to Terra. Terra would become a vacation spot. Believe me, once you go there, not here. I have been there. What I'm talking about, I'm not joking, I'm not hallucinating, I'm not lying. I have had manipulations done to my genetic code, so I could physically pass through portals. In the early days, they had these spaceships. They serve as a buffer going through the dimensional portals. So you don't go into spontaneous combustion biologically because your codes aren't high enough to handle the frequencies that are in interdimensional frequencies between them. When you go through a portal, it's awesome because you go through a series of perceptual experiences very, very quickly. It's like beaming up Scotty, but not exactly. You hear certain things, you get pressure, and you condense into light. And then you feel swiftness, and then you feel nothing. There's a point where you are gone. You're not even aware of yourself, which is kind of a weird point. You'd be scared, but you're not there, so you don't really worry about it. And then you come back through the same series of, first you like the rushing sound, and then it's like a weird vibration thing, and then you feel your body coming back. It's a positive experience. All right, and I swear to you, it's real. And it will be available to some of us. Some of us who are able to activate the full fifth strand will be able to pass through some of the portals. But even for those who don't, it's all right, as long as we can get the strand 4.5 activation. Now here is where I'm going to divert a little from what's in the package, and once you have it, it's good because there's more, that will be useful to you there. But I didn't have time to cover this in the lecture, and it's important. I've talked about there's big things happening in the next, 18 years. We need to cover that a little bit here. And why we need to worry about all these transitions now, like can I do this next life or something, it's better to do it this way. What I'm going to talk about now, I'm not going to need the Mylars for, because I'm going off the board, as they say. Okay? I will go back on the board a little bit, maybe.